Hello, welcome to Game Informer. We are here to talk about Final Fantasy XVI. I am Joe Juba. I have assembled the finest RPG minds at Game Informer to talk about that surprise showing of Final Fantasy XVI at the PlayStation 5 event last week. I have with me Dan Tack.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. As always, what a show. Final Fantasy. We are up all the way to Final Fantasy 20. Oh, wait, this is 16. 16. Okay, sounds good.
Always the showman, Dan Tack. We have Jay Guisao.
Yo, ready to talk about some spiky-haired people once again?
And Kimberly Wallace.
Do we like Final Fantasy still?
I think we will talk about that and many more things as as this discussion goes on. But I think what I wanted to just kick things off with was a pretty simple question. Did you think Final Fantasy XVI would be at that Sony event?
Hell no. Dan, you did not.
I called it. I can prove it. I can prove it. I got tape.
Dan, you did not. When that
I said it on stream for like 2 weeks that it was going to be there. I can show you. I think it'll be Final Fantasy 16, maybe Silent Hill.
Final Fantasy 16.
Then we'd have to watch your stream.
I know. So, you got to take the good with the bad.
Here's what I'm going to say. When it came up, like, I knew it was something Final Fantasy related, but I thought it was some spin-off game. I was actually talking to a friend of mine. I was like, this was the first time, like, we saw a new mainline Final Fantasy. My first reaction wasn't like, oh my God, these graphics. And I think because of the jump between hardware is not going to be as noticeable. Like, we're getting so high in where we are with graphics and fidelity and all that, that I just didn't even think it was Final Fantasy 16. I just thought, oh, this is some spin-off game, which is not like to say anything bad about it, but it just kind of, because of how it was introduced, and I just wasn't expecting 16 quite this soon. How are you guys with it? Obviously, Dan predicted the future.
Hang on, I'm not going to forget about predicting the future, all right? But because I was already expecting Final Fantasy 16 to be there, the second I saw the Chocobo, I was like, all right, this is 16.
Yep.
I mean, that you think I'm just making this up?
For me, I was like, I don't know.
Okay, yeah. I think for. Okay, so I was on the stream with Alex, and we were sort of like doing the play-by-play as that was going live, and I consider myself a pretty big fan of the series, but I was in Kim's boat where, like, I had heard the rumors that it might possibly be revealed at the event. I don't know how much credence I gave them, but even waiting for it, I saw I saw the chocobos, I heard the music, all of that stuff, and I was in Kim's boat where I was just like, could this really be 16?
Right.
And I think for me, part of that was tied to how Square Enix has traditionally revealed these games, because I think that when they do them in the past, it's usually been with these big, like Kim pointed out, like really visually stunning cinematic trailers that really like pose a lot of questions about the world and leave you just wondering, like, okay, so like, what does it play like? And this was such an untraditional Final Fantasy reveal in that respect, where it's like you're seeing in-engine like gameplay. It's not all just based on the sort of like smoke and mirrors of cinematic sequences and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I also thought it was a little bit confusing. What about you, Jay?
I thought it was just a little lackluster. I thought it was going to be like an MMO expansion or something. Like, it had that kind of graphical downgrade to it that MMO, like the MMO Final Fantasy treatment, like usually gets. So I didn't think it was going to be 16, for sure.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit too, because I think, even as someone who's a fan, it's no secret that after that trailer was out, like, there were a lot of conversations going on online about how it just didn't look as good as people were expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that might be what Kim's talking about too, about the just the wall that we're hitting for next gen. But I mean, it did not look like a next gen game, right?
But what does a next gen game look like?
Okay, I guess here was the disconnect for me, is like, I think it looked good when they showed the combat, when you see like the
Mhm.
Marlboro going and like like charging the guy and all that stuff. I think the combat gameplay stuff looked good. I think the where it got hung up is in those cinematic sequences
Yep.
where like the character models look like kind of had the pasted on hair look and things like
Yep.
that. I think that's where some of the criticism's coming from.
You know, I thought that was really interesting. Not in that fashion, but in the fact that we got to see so many summons, which are generally the things they don't show in any of the marketing materials, right?
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
yet the trailer was, these are Final Fantasy summons, the trailer. Hello, and we've got summons. Here they are.
But I think too, it looked very close to 15 with like a lot of the summons, even in my opinion.
Mhm.
With it, it was just like, oh, okay, so we're still doing it with those over the top, which like I like that actually, but the game did look to me like like visually just not like, as we talked about, this jump. And even so, but
Right.
at the same time, I'd rather see actual gameplay than have some like heavy cinematic trailer that doesn't really tell us anything, and I was happy that at least it looks like the game is being worked on. I mean, there's a lot to like, Square doesn't have the best rep right now with like we had Final Fantasy, 15 that was in development for so long, and now, the Kingdom Hearts and everything else. And we hope that they learned from last generation that like don't announce too early, don't announce
Right.
too early. That's why I didn't actually expect Final Fantasy 16, because I thought they're gonna be a little, but then when I saw that they actually had gameplay to show and all this, I'm like, well, they've been working on this for a bit now. So that made me happy, at least that, okay, maybe I just thought Final Fantasy 16 is so far off, and it could still be so far off, but just
Mhm.
seeing what I did was like, all right, this is a little promising for me. That it's at least a step in the right direction of showing actual gameplay and not having us sitting there like trying to guess like, do we even see anything from the game
Right.
really,
Yeah. I think that that's an important thing to show. I don't know if it's the most blow your socks off way to reveal your game,
Yeah, for sure.
but
And I think we're so used to them doing that, right? Like you see the teaser, the trailer, and you're like, oh my God, what is what's happening? What's going on? What are they
Right.
doing? But we've been so we've also gotten smarter about that stuff, because we have been like fooled before of like, or the game changes so much by the time it comes out that it's not what we saw in that early trailer at all. But one thing that I think I'm super excited about with this is I feel like with 15 they had a lot of baggage, obviously, with it being versus 13 transforming into 15. And like, as we talked about, they had so many promises that they had made that they had to keep in like the game. I feel like this is their like clean slate. They have not like, they're not trying to implement all this stuff that had been, promised previously. Like they can just go into this one and do kind of what they want without having something hanging over them that was previously promised.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily think we need to go in and like dissect that 4-minute trailer or anything. But what I want to talk about is like, based on what we've seen from that trailer, like I I'm wondering what you are hoping for from 16. Like, what do you, based on what you've seen in that trailer, Dan, what do you want it to be?
I want it to not be the game that was shown in that trailer.
Oh,
Hot
God.
take.
That's
looks
that's fair.
it looks like such a traditional, by the numbers Final Fantasy story of warring nations, and the thing I got was like a very Final Fantasy 14 thing. Which, by the way, we're talking early Final Fantasy 14, not current Final Fantasy 14, which has an amazing world, an amazing story, and amazing characters. But we're talking like the barest of bones from the trailer, right? I could be eating crow here next
Just
year, but
prove him wrong, Square Enix.
please God, prove me wrong. But what we saw was
You're
mad
you're
traditional, right? Like we've got the, hey, I'm from this nation, we've got this summon, and I'm from this nation, we've got this summon, and they're the bad guys and we're the good guys. And look at that dragoon, isn't he cool? Cute cut to a Marlboro being fought and a Corel or whatever the hell you call them. We've got a Final Fantasy game, people. Lock it up. You know, it looked like like if I was doing a coloring book for Final Fantasy, every part of that trailer would have been a page for the modern Final Fantasy vibe.
So you're telling me what you don't want it to be. What do you want?
Yeah. I want to go back to turn-based combat, which we're obviously not
My
doing.
Man.
Okay.
My
Which we're never
guy.
going to do again, and I'm okay with that. I get, well, I'm not okay with that. But if we're doing action combat, as long as it's not like, can we do anything but Final Fantasy XV's combat? Please. Please. Anything.
Definitely.
Okay. What do you think, Jay? What do you want it?
What do I want it to be? I'm thinking it's given me kind of like Final Fantasy 12 vibes a little bit with the whole like
Mhm.
like it has like kind of like this medieval aspect to it, but not really. I don't know how to explain it. Final Fantasy 12 was kind of like that, like stuck in this weird time era. I'm thinking though, to sort of like to piggyback off of Dan, I don't want an open world like Final Fantasy 15's. Like I kind of just want hubs, man. I don't really think that Square has been great at open worlds, at least like continuously interesting open worlds. I think there are always those moments where like we get to a point where it gets a little monotonous or just like kind of dull. So I'm really interested in like sort of like these larger scale hubs that are like highly detailed and like immersive and stuff. And you can just sort of navigate through that rather than entering this open world and sort of like just falling off like with it because it's just not as interesting. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
All right. That's top of the wish list.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Kim, what's top of your wish list?
Uh, I like that it went back to high fantasy. Like
Mhm.
after having something like 15, where I liked what they did with 15 is having like, real world locations that were clearly they were inspired by to kind of make that game and still have it feel like very majestic and fun to visit. But I do miss kind of the high fantasy stuff. So I was actually okay with that. um God, I'm gonna catch some fire for this, but like here we go. Interesting female characters. I want to after having the road trip, which I like that dynamic too of just like a bunch of guys on the roads who have this friendship. I'll always defend my prompto till the day I die, but
Yeah, you will.
yeah, I will. But I really the casts have been really hit or miss for me. And I looked in that trailer, and there are some female characters that I'm hoping have a bigger role than what we've seen. But I'm all about having very character driven stories, and it seemed like the focus was on the male characters. So I hope
Mhm.
that there's stuff that they're holding back there that they're going to show. And then I feel like what's they did with Final Fantasy VII remake this generation was they finally, I felt like, got it right of trying. Final Fantasy's been in this weird phase where you have the old school fans, like a lot of us, who are like, oh, we want that traditional like turn-based combat, whatever. We remember those days. And then you have a new generation who's just learning about Final Fantasy, and you're trying to bridge those two together. And like, if you ask people, everybody wants something different from Final Fantasy. And I felt like the remake of 7 was starting to get on the right track where they were able to kind of please two very different audiences in different ways. And so I'm hoping they can kind of continue down that road. The combat to me looked, like I said, where I just don't think we're ever going to get a turn-based battle system like of the old days again. So I wasn't bothered by what I saw. The moves looked fun, flashy. And then for me, I go back and forth on the open world stuff because I feel like Final Fantasy 15 was Square's like first time trying to create those bigger spaces. And
Mhm.
so I didn't expect them to knock it out of the park. I felt like it was a learning thing, like experience that they had to try. But I would like to see them be able to execute more on that open world style because I think if they are going to compete in the AAA market, they have to, be able to provide that, cool RPG experience, which is being able to just like go off the beaten path and
It's true.
explore and have those worlds that feel very like, lived in, and that like, to me, that's been a big part of the experience. So I guess I went all over the place with this answer, which
No,
is
hey, you can have a multi-point wish list.
Good
yeah.
answer.
That's
There's
fair.
just I've been thinking about it. It's like I feel like Final Fantasy had to evolve. I feel like it's made its missteps. It had to learn a lot from 15, and I feel like I hope they did going through all that, and bringing that forward into finally, I said, like, this game where they have a fresh start, and I'm curious as how this one will ultimately like fare.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Just a quick thing, real quick. I want to agree that I like going back to traditional. I didn't see any Tonberries though. That was a big misstep. There needs to be a Tonberry in the show.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
Oh,
But-
Dan,
but
you need to play FF7 remake. So you're just waiting for that PC version.
We're getting closer every day, Joe. I've waited this long. Why not wait? Why not wait it out and enjoy the ultimate experience? But anyway, Kim, what do you think the chances are that there is a cool female character in that game? Give me a percent.
Do you want my? I gotta be true.
Yeah.
It is very low.
That's a very good
Jeez.
answer.
That's oof.
Ah.
Oh boy.
Because the early Final, like did good. Yeah, I don't. I will go on a
Nope.
rant that we don't need to get into. That's my answer. That
All right.
I worry, but
Yeah.
I would love for them to at least, like I said, put more effort forth there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have basically a 3-point list of the
Ooh.
things that I want. But
Okay.
some of these things have been touched on already, so I'll just like run through them quick. I think the number one thing is they need to steal and build on Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat system.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because that is like for me, that was such a great fusion of the more action focused direction that we saw in 15, but but also the like tactical menu focused version of like the 13 games, right? So I think that was so good, and I would like to see that be taken a step forward. Uh, to agree with Kim, I also want to see more open world stuff. I don't want more Final Fantasy 15 as a concession to Dan. Like, absolutely, I think there's more that open world was imperfect, but I do think it's a great starting point to creating, like that sort of immersive space that people want, which feeds into my third main point, which is I want that world to be interesting. Like, I want it to be cool and surprising and unexpected. And this is stuff that we've talked about a little bit already. But for me, that was probably the biggest turnoff of that whole trailer was I mean, I guess kind of how boilerplate fantasy it sort of felt. How it did feel like an amalgam of some of that, like Final Fantasy 14, Final Fantasy 12. It's not even necessarily anything bad with high fantasy as much as it is apart from these summoned monsters. I just don't have a good sense of what's going to draw me into that world compared
Right.
to, I mean, it's going way back, but like, you remember the very first Final Fantasy Versus 13 trailer, the one with like Noctis on the throne and like
Yes.
summoning those swords? Like, that's a short trailer, but you watch that and like I saw that and right away I was just like, I want to play that game. I want to know what's going on with that dude. I want to know what's in that world. I want to know why you can summon those swords. Like all of these things that were enticing me into that story. And this at least from this first look at 16, I don't know that there's anything like pulling me in that same way. Does that make sense?
I mean, it's all things that we've seen before. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Like I said, like back to what I was saying. Like there seems to be a lot of like Final Fantasy 14 in here from someone who plays a ton of 14. That's not a bad thing, by the way, but it is very, I don't know, very safe. It's
Yeah.
all ground that we've tread before in this franchise. And with the 16th number entry, I don't know if that's, I don't know if we should be surprised by the fact that it doesn't look like it's taking big chances in the world, but it would be cool if we got some new faces. In terms of like monsters and world and stuff like that, this is not going to be the same. By the way, I love fighting Marlboros. I could fight them all day. Tonberries all day. That's great. But maybe, couple new things instead of just like a couple of flan. I promise you, there's gonna be flan to defeat.
Okay, how about this? How about this question? Which summon that you did not see in the trailer do you want to see in the game the most?
Did not see in the trailer.
Yeah, because for me, I'm just gonna throw mine out there right away. Is Alexander?
He'll be in there.
It's a big robotic church. That thing is awesome.
They have loved him in these last 5 years or so. He's got a raid in Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
He'll be there. He'll be there.
Yeah.
What I want to see, we don't get to see as much as some of the others. I think is Odin. I'd like to bring back old Odin, even though he's kind of boring. That I think about it, but he's cool.
I mean, Odin is very much just like lifted from
dude with sword. Yeah, I know.
But I think it's interesting because from the trailer, it's and the like image and the logo, it's clear that summons are like a big part of this story.
Having watched the trailer like 5 times to try to prepare for this, even though they don't really, everything's like a quick cut, right? Like there's really nothing you can dig into there. But like I said, it seems like summons were associated with the individuals, and the individuals were representing their nation states, and then each nation had like a, I'm the nation that can summon Shiva, and I'm the nation that can summon Phoenix. But and then like everyone's really surprised when someone else is like, wait, they're summoning another one. Only the Fire Nation can only summon one summon, and then Ifrit comes out and starts, doing Ifrit things. And
okay.
Yeah, Dan, I think you had it right when you said for the first time they led with the summons instead of like hiding them for like a later reveal, like, oh, we'll show you the summons, but we're gonna wait in the campaign. And I think them showing that up front really does show that that's going to be a big part of the storyline this time around.
I think it's interesting too, because it was in 15, it was a big part of the storyline technically, because that's like the main thing you were doing is going to collect a bunch of summons basically. But they were, in terms of their like prominence in the game and in combat, it was probably one of the least prominent roles that summons have played, right? Okay, Kim, what one do you want to see?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for this.
Oh, yes, you do. Come on.
No, I really don't.
When you close your eyes at night, I know you see Final Fantasy summons. Which one?
I don't have a good answer for it because like they showed, I love Shiva and Shiva was there.
Yeah,
that's good. See,
that's my favorite.
There you go.
So
there you go.
I'm very classic with that.
Nothing wrong with Shiva. What about you, Jay?
I'm going to be that guy, and I'm going to say I'm not really looking forward to any summons. I want some new ones, man.
Ooh.
I feel like now is the time.
Hey,
now's the time, right?
A Final Fantasy game, you're not looking forward to any summons? What?
I'm not.
He wants new ones. He says new ones.
I want new ones. I want like I feel like if we're gonna go with Dan's theory, right, and say that like maybe we have like summons that are linked to characters, we can get some really interesting characters because of new summons. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I think that would be really cool. I think Final Fantasy kind of has like they've been just kind of recycling like the most popular summons over and over and over. Like I would really like to see for like the next generation of Final Fantasy, like and to build off your point too, Juba, like to make it like new and interesting and cool. Let's get something new and interesting and cool in the game. And why not start with like something that's always been in it since the beginning, but just revamped,
I think on that one, you got to be careful what you wish for, because that's a big monkey's paw. You start asking for new summons, you're going to end up with stuff like Klefki and stuff like that. You got to be very careful.
Okay, so I think we're going to close things off here, but I did have one more question that I just wanted to go around the horn. It can even just be yes or no. If you want to talk about it, you can talk about it. Will this game have multiplayer? Dan.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a tough no. There. All right.
No.
Kim.
No. Because Comrades was an interesting experiment, but I don't feel like they got what they put into it.
See, I'm gonna deviate. I think it's got you. I think it's gonna. I think using Comrades as the example. I think I'm taking the fork in that road from Kim, where I think that they did Comrades to like test the water, and instead of bailing out, I think that they're going to double down on it, and it's going to it won't be like a separate mode. I bet it'll be further integrated into the like main campaign experience.
Drop in, drop out campaign.
I don't know. I mean, there is something, and this is maybe me just reading into the trailer, but like in the combat that we saw, there was just that one character.
There's a companion character in the trailer. If you look really, I think
Really?
I surmise there is one point in the trailer where you can see an ally doing things. It's very
Really?
brief, but I
Yeah,
believe that there is.
I saw that too.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, well, again, who knows? I guess what it all boils down to is there's a lot of mysteries about Final Fantasy 16 right now, and it's fun to get together and speculate about that. And I'm sure that in the in the months or years until that game actually comes out, we will be doing a lot more of that. But until then, thanks to the crew here. Thanks for joining me and chatting about this. And thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.